This ecosystem is not unlike a bullet train, guys. We're about to leave the station on the 12th, and we'll start out at 1 kilometer per hour, just like a conventional train, but that'll be no indication of the velocities we'll be able to achieve. Ready? Let's go. Feeling some deja vu here. Once again, today is a day where our little cyberpunk mystery is supposed to unravel. Meanwhile, there are some other things happening in the Cardano ecosystem that we should probably be paying attention to. We have a potentially dangerous wallet in the ecosystem. The Flano wallet. Despite being a delicious custardy dessert, it turns out that there are accusations that the Flano wallet may actually be out to steal your private keys. The way this has been described here, this may actually be the purest form of lobster trap, like the very worst possible lobster trap. Huge thanks to Big Pay for making everybody aware of this. Apparently, this is one of those projects that claims to have everything: a DEX, an NFT platform, and a beta version of their wallet. Pay says that when you try to enter your recovery phrase to recover your wallet in this Flano Swap beta version of their wallet, it tells you that you have an invalid wallet. But at the same time, he says it sends a copy of your recovery phrase to them, to Flano wallet. You do not want this. The second they have your recovery phrase, they can steal your ADA. So Pay tells you exactly how you can confirm this for yourself, but this looks pretty bad. I mean, this is kind of the classic model where they build up just enough to look like some kind of project or something. And the only thing they're actually trying to do is get you to enter your recovery phrase. Everything else is an illusion. It's a mirage. It's like you're on vacation in some far off land and you're walking through a market and some dude comes past you. He's like, "Hey, bro, did you hear there's free hamburgers down there?" And he points down some alley, right? And there's like, you get down the alley and there's like a sign. It's like free hamburgers this way. And then you walk down the alley. The alley is getting like darker and darker and more enclosed. And then finally there's a doorway and it's like free hamburgers here. And you walk inside and there's just like a bunch of like little kids with knives who demand your wallet, right? You're going in for free hamburgers, but all they're doing, they took all the time to draw like the pictures of the hamburgers and post them in the alley and like intercept you in the market. It's all, you think you're getting free hamburgers. It's nothing but cheap knives held by 12-year-olds. Again, I don't know if the company's had a chance to respond to this. I'm using the word company here, but this, might just be, a small time criminal organization. It could be that this is all some kind of big misunderstanding. Probably not. I mean, this is exactly how these types of little criminal enterprises work, and we're going to see a lot of these. I mean, this is just going to be the beginning of many, many, many of these. It's only going to get worse after smart contracts are launched. The bigger Cardano gets, the more of these there will be. You've got to be really good at drawing a really bold line for yourself. That bold line is you sending your ADA anywhere, or you entering your private keys in no matter what form they might take, recovery phrase, seed phrase, whatever, entering your private keys anywhere. If you're doing either one of those two things, sending your ADA anywhere, entering your private your recovery phrase anywhere, you need to have run like 1,000 little double checks in your head, convinced yourself. And you should try not to be the first person ever doing this, right? If you don't know somebody else, or a lot of people, if a lot of people haven't said, "Oh, I did this, everything's cool," and you've run a million other little subroutines to check for yourself, you probably shouldn't be doing either of those two things. So if you're like a new explorer in a strange land, probably try not to be the first one to go into the Switchblade Hamburger Cafe. Just try to make sure you see somebody else walk back out of there with a hamburger first. Of course, the even smarter strategy is just don't use any new wallets. There are going to be a lot of wallets that come on the market. You probably don't need to use any of them. We've got some pretty good wallets in the ecosystem already, and there will be evolution. There will be some new wallets that will be good ones, but probably that should be like a very, very high security threshold to convince yourself to eventually use a new wallet. For me, that would be like tens of thousands of people having already used it. But you should probably just not use any new wallets, and you should probably not send your ADA anywhere. Again, for me, like sending any amount of ADA that I would ever care about anywhere, that threshold would be like, maybe like tens of thousands of people have already done it. Granted, if I were to send like, $20 worth of ADA somewhere, not a big deal. It's not gonna destroy my life if I lose $20 worth of ADA. But if I'm sending any amount of ADA anywhere, or if I were especially going to use a new wallet, it would be a very, very high threshold to convince myself to do that. I mean, you could use a new wallet and just not put anything in there. I mean, certainly I've done that. But these are all potential lobster traps. You got to remember, every lobster trap looks like a cave. They all look like the warm, comfortable cave. They all look like the good hamburger place. They never look like the actual lobster trap or the switchblade hamburger place. On a significantly less stabby note, here we have Sebastian of DC Spark. You already know who those guys are. They're a firm within Cardano who has created the Milkomeda sidechain, where developers from Ethereum will be able to deploy Solidity smart contracts, and we as ADA users will be able to interact with those smart contracts using wrapped ADA. Really interesting idea. It's that company is Sebastian, along with Nicholas Aqueros and Robert Kornacki. I'm sure they're going to put out a lot of awesome things, even in addition to this very cool sounding sidechain. Here, Sebastian gives us a view into what the hiring scene for Cardano developers looks like for them. So you've got to remember, when you're talking about a Cardano developer, you're talking about not just a developer who's interested in the world of functional programming, and not just the world of Haskell within functional programming, but the world of Plutus within Haskell, which is Haskell, a subset of Haskell, plus a bunch of blockchain stuff on top of that. And really the only place where you can pick up that kind of knowledge is this one course taught by one guy that we call the Plutus Pioneers program. So even within that niche of a niche of a niche, they've had 100 people apply for these positions, and Sebastian was going to interview like 8 people today. I think they just barely opened up these positions. So this is where you've got a comparative advantage if you've been paying attention to what's going on within Cardano. One of the big narratives out there in the crypto space in general is, and this has been predictable for years that this would come up when we finally got to this point, but one of the big narratives out there is that there's no developer adoption. There's no developer interest in Cardano because Cardano's programming language is based on a pretty exotic functional programming language in Haskell. And you can see that actually what IOHK and Cardano did to mitigate that, running the Plutus Pioneer program, created a bunch of developers who would be built in at launch to do jobs like this. And most people, if they don't follow Cardano, there's no way they could know that. They would easily buy into this narrative that there's no developer adoption. But it's sort of like Cardano just created its own little program to train its own developers. And if you've looked at what some of these developers are planning to do once they get good, once they finish the Plutus Pioneer program, or if they have already finished it, they seem to be like ambitious, very capable people. Speaking of false narratives about Cardano that proliferate in the greater crypto space, Charles also gave us a little note on this this narrative slash propaganda that's sort of been floating around the last few days, that Cardano is going to become the KYC chain. And the implication is kind of that like KYC would be instituted at the base layer level of the protocol. So Charles, of course, gets pretty excited about this, and he goes through and basically lays out how that would be impossible. Even if anybody wanted that, which no one does, it would be impossible because it's an open ecosystem. Anybody can take the open source code and create a wallet for Cardano. You could then use that wallet to transact in ADA all you want, and there's not really a way for anyone to impose KYC on you. However, of course, as we all already know, there are a lot of entities in any crypto ecosystem that want to engage in regulated activities like an exchange, like a Coinbase. They're going to need to KYC you. And Cardano has been doing, like every ecosystem, certain things to ensure that entities like that can KYC their users when they need to. And of course, all this ties into digital identity, which is a big deal in Cardano. And we have Atala Prism, which does that. And it can work for KYC as well as a ton of other things like the implementation for the Ministry of Education in Ethiopia. So Charles doesn't mention that, but of course, we already know. What was really interesting about all this, though, I don't think any of that would really be a surprise to anyone. But what's really interesting about all this is at a certain point in the video, and I think it's about 5:35-ish, if you want to go listen to it, at a certain point in this video, Charles straight up says, hey, there's a lot of discussion right now about how to bring compliance into the DeFi space because heavy regulation is coming for DeFi in the next 24 months based on the comments of US and European regulators. He straight up uses those words, heavy regulation, not light regulation, not feather-like regulation, heavy regulation. This is something we've been talking about a lot on the channel over the last couple months in the context of all the policy making that's going on in Washington and various comments made by various people, Gensler at SEC, Treasury people, senators. It's been a lot of big giant road signs saying, hey guys, there's no way off this freeway, and the freeway is definitely going through a county called regulation. It's very clear to me. I think some people are kind of in this cloud of cognitive dissonance over this, that somehow that's not actually going to happen. But if you don't believe me and you do believe Charles, go watch this video. He straight up says he believes there's going to be heavy regulation of DeFi over the next 24 months. Having said that, it's not like there's no path forward for a project that wants to engage in DeFi. There is a path, it's just that it's a very regulated one. And that probably means those projects behaving and looking a lot different than they currently do, probably in most cases. Hopefully today we finally find out what's going on with all of this, and I will talk to you tomorrow.